The first stars were beginning to fade as Earth rotated into another dawn. Admiral Park Jin-woo had been awake for nearly 20 hours, yet sleep was the furthest thing from his mind. He stood rigid at his post on the Lunar Defense Station's observation deck, his salt and pepper hair neatly combed despite the long hours. His dark eyes never left the distant specks of light that grew larger with each passing minute. "Admiral, the unknown vessels have crossed the Mars orbital line," Lieutenant Kim Hyrie reported from her station. Her young face glowed in the blue light of multiple screens, each tracking the approaching ships. "How many do we count now?" Jin-woo asked, though he already knew the answer. He'd memorized every detail of the last 6 hours since the first signals were detected. 7 vessels, sir, all matching the initial configuration." "There," Hyrie paused, double-checking her readings. "They're unlike anything in our database. The whole composition appears to be some kind of crystalline structure." Jin-woo's weathered fingers tapped against the reinforced glass of the observation window. 20 years in the Earth Defense Force hadn't prepared him for this moment. Humanity's first quantum drive test had been just 3 days ago, a closely guarded secret that should have been known only to top military personnel. Yet here they were, facing visitors who arrived with suspicious precision. The ships drew closer, their crystalline surfaces catching the sunlight in ways that seemed to defy physics. They moved with impossible grace, as if the laws of momentum meant nothing to them. Jin-woo had seen every type of human spacecraft ever built, but these vessels made Earth's proudest achievements look like children's toys. "Sir," Hyrie called out, her voice tense, "we're receiving a transmission. It's in perfect English." Before Jin-woo could respond, the main screen lit up with an image that made several junior officers gasp. The alien that appeared looked surprisingly humanoid, though its skin had a slight silvery sheen and its eyes were larger than human norm. What struck Jin-woo most was its expression, a perfect, practiced smile that reminded him of politicians before an election. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am High Counselor Ta Yunji of the Galactic Council. We come in peace and friendship." Jin-woo felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise. The alien's Korean name choice couldn't be a coincidence. They'd been studying Earth closely enough to understand not just their languages, but their cultural naming conventions. "We have been watching your progress with great interest," Yunji continued. "Your recent achievement with quantum drive technology has proven you ready for first contact. We would be honored to dock at your station and begin formal diplomatic relations." The control room fell silent. Dozens of eyes turned to Jin-woo, waiting for his response. He thought of the emergency protocols, the countless drills, all the theoretical first contact scenarios they'd practiced. None of them quite fit this situation. "Lieutenant, alert the United Earth government representatives immediately," he ordered, keeping his voice steady, "and run a full scan of those ships. I want to know everything our sensors can tell us." "Yes, sir," Hyrie responded, her fingers flying over her console. "Sir, they're already asking for docking permission. Their approach vector is perfectly aligned with our base. It's as if they already know our station's exact layout." Jin-woo's jaw tightened. Of course they did. How long had they really been watching? What else did they know? "Permission granted," he said finally, knowing they had little choice. Earth needed to appear welcoming, regardless of his personal doubts, but maintain all defense systems at ready status, quietly. As the crystalline ships began their docking procedure, moving with unnaturally perfect precision, Jin-woo studied their reflection in the observation window. Behind him, he could hear the excited chatter of his crew, the rush of preparations for their historic visitors. But in the glass, he saw something else. His own face, lined with concern, superimposed over those beautiful, dangerous ships. "They're earlier than we expected," Hyrie whispered, coming to stand beside him. "How could they have known about the quantum drive test so quickly?" "That's exactly what worries me, Lieutenant," Jin-woo replied softly. "They didn't just know about it. They were waiting for it. This whole thing feels choreographed, she suggested. Like a trap, he corrected, watching the first ship ease into the docking bay with impossible precision. Or the opening move in a very long game. The docking clamps engaged with a deep thud that resonated through the station's structure. Humanity's first official contact with alien life was about to begin, and Admiral Park Jin-woo couldn't shake the feeling that Earth was walking into a carefully laid plan. One that had been in motion long before anyone on his world had dreamed of reaching for the stars. Dr. Lee Min-soo's coffee had gone cold hours ago, forgotten amid the sea of holographic diagrams floating above his workstation. The clock on the wall of the Technology Exchange Center showed 3:47 a.m., but time had lost all meaning since the Council's gift had arrived. The soft blue glow of the schematics cast strange shadows across the empty cups and scattered tablets that covered his desk. 3 months had passed since the aliens had presented Earth with their technological package. 3 months of sleepless nights and endless calculations that refused to make sense. Min-soo rubbed his tired eyes, focusing again on the power distribution matrix for the FTL drive. The numbers danced before him, but the pattern remained stubbornly wrong. "You're still here." Dr. Kang Dahee's voice startled him from his concentration. She stood in the doorway of the lab, her own desk lamp still glowing in the office behind her. "I thought I was the only one burning midnight oil." "Couldn't sleep," Min-soo muttered, gesturing at the holographic display. "These power calculations, they're all wrong, Dahee. Look at this output ratio." Dahee walked over, her steps echoing in the empty facility. The Technology Exchange Center in New Seoul was massive, a gleaming testament to humanity's new partnership with the Galactic Council. During the day, it bustled with scientists and alien advisors. At night, it became a maze of shadows and quiet frustration. "Show me," she said, pulling up a chair. Her dark eyes narrowed as Min-soo highlighted the relevant sections of the schematic. "See here. The energy conversion rate they specify for the quantum core." He traced the numbers with his finger. "It's artificially low. Way too low for the stated mass of the dry system." Dahee frowned, pulling up her own data on a nearby screen. "I found something similar in the navigational systems," she said. "The targeting algorithms are needlessly complex, with redundant loops that serve no purpose except to slow down calculations." Min-soo sat back in his chair, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "It's not just inefficient design," he said slowly. "These are deliberate limitations. They've built in artificial constraints at every level." "But why?" Dahee asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "Control." Min-soo stood up, pacing the length of his workstation. "They're giving us technology that's just advanced enough to impress us, but not enough to let us compete with them. Like giving a child a toy car instead of real keys." Dahee nodded, pulling up more schematics. "Look at the safety protocols they insisted we implement. They don't just prevent accidents, they prevent any significant modifications to the base design." "Have you shown this to the Oversight Committee?" Min-soo asked, already knowing the answer. The committee was stacked with council supporters, scientists so dazzled by alien technology they'd stopped asking questions. "They wouldn't listen," Dahee said bitterly. "Called it natural caution from a more advanced civilization. Said we should be grateful for any help at all." Min-soo walked to the window, looking out over the glittering skyline of New Seoul. Somewhere up there, council ships hung in orbit, watching. Always watching. "We need to document everything," he said finally. "Every inconsistency, every artificial limitation. And we need to find others who've noticed the same things." "That's dangerous," Dahee warned. "The Council monitors all our communications. Their advisory staff has access to everything we do here." Min-soo turned back to her, his expression determined. "Then we'll have to be clever about it. The old ways, paper notes, private meetings, coded messages, they may have given us crippled technology, but they haven't taken away our ability to think." Dahee was quiet for a moment, then smiled. I know a few others in the quantum physics division who've raised similar concerns, and my brother in the military. He's mentioned some interesting theories about the Council's true intentions. Good, Min Su said, returning to his workstation. We'll need all the help we can get, because if we're right about this, he gestured at the floating schematics, their beautiful, deceptive simplicity mocking them. If we're right, then this isn't a gift at all. It's a cage, and they're counting on us being too grateful to notice the bars. They worked through the rest of the night, documenting discrepancies and building their case. As dawn broke over New Seoul, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Dr. Lee Min-soo allowed himself a small smile. The Council might think they had humanity safely contained, advancing only as fast as they allowed. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated human curiosity. And more importantly, they had underestimated humanity's long history of breaking free from those who would control them. The gift of limited technology wasn't the end of humanity's journey to the stars. It was just the beginning. Water pressed against the reinforced walls, a facility deep blue, 10,000 feet beneath the Pacific Ocean. The immense pressure seemed fitting to Captain Song Jae-hun. His team carried the weight of humanity's future on their shoulders. He stood on the observation platform, watching teams of engineers swarm around humanity's greatest secret like busy ants around a giant. The HMS Prometheus filled the massive underwater construction bay, its sleek hull gleaming under the harsh industrial lights. Unlike the crystalline elegance of council vessels, the Prometheus was all sharp angles and purposeful design. Its dark metal skin absorbed light rather than reflecting it, the first hint of its true capabilities. Beautiful, isn't she? Commander Han Yunji stepped up beside him, her tool belt still jingling from her latest inspection. Grease stained her coveralls, but her eyes shone with pride. The Council would have a collective heart attack if they knew what we've done with their generous gifts. Jae-hun smiled slightly. How's the quantum core holding up? Better than the simulations predicted, Yunji replied, pulling up diagnostic data on her tablet. We've managed to bypass all their artificial limitations. The power output is nearly triple what their approved designs allow. The captain nodded, remembering the day 6 months ago, when Dr. Lee Min-soo had first approached military intelligence with proof of the Council's deception. That revelation had led to Project Prometheus, humanity's secret response to alien manipulation. Security status? Jae-hun asked, watching a team test the ship's outer hull panels. The Council's satellites still show this area as a deep-sea mining operation, Yunji reported. Our electromagnetic masking systems are working perfectly. As far as they're concerned, we're just extracting manganese nodules down here. Jae-hun's hands gripped the railing as he leaned forward. And the stealth systems. That's the best part. Yunji's grin widened. We've completely redesigned their basic cloaking technology. Instead of just bending light around the ship, we're actually creating a null space, a bubble of nothing. When it's active, the Prometheus doesn't just become invisible. It ceases to exist as far as sensors are concerned. Below them, technicians were finishing the installation of the last weapon systems, another feature the Council would never have approved. Their gifts of technology had carefully excluded anything that could be used for military purposes, but humanity had centuries of experience in turning peaceful technology to defensive ends. Time estimate until completion? Jae-hun asked, though he already knew the answer. Every second of the schedule was burned into his mind. Final systems checked tomorrow. Sea trials begin next week. Yunji paused, her expression growing serious. The Council's scheduled inspection of Earth's shipyards is in 2 weeks. We'll be ready before then. Jae-hun nodded slowly. The timing would be tight, but it had to be. The Council's inspection was just a cover for their planned takeover. They expected to find only the weak, limited ships they had authorized Earth to build. The Prometheus would be humanity's surprise answer to their arrogance. Have you chosen your crew? Yunji asked, checking off items on her tablet. Only the best, Jai-hun replied. People who understand what we're fighting for, who know that freedom is worth any risk. A deep hum filled the facility as technicians began powering up the ship's systems for another test. The sound resonated in Jai-hun's chest, a reminder of the raw power they had managed to create. The Council had fought to keep humanity safely limited, advancing only at the pace they allowed. Instead, they had provided the basic tools that human ingenuity had transformed into something unprecedented. Remember when they first showed us their ships? Yunji asked softly. How impossible they seemed. I remember thinking we'd never catch up, Jai-hun admitted. But that's what they wanted us to think. They never understood that humans don't accept limitations. We break them. The Prometheus's hull began to shimmer as the stealth systems engaged for testing. Piece by piece, the massive ship seemed to fade from existence, until only a subtle distortion in the air remained. It was beautiful and terrifying. A ghost ship built in defiance of those who would keep humanity bound. 1 week, Jai-hun said firmly. 1 week until we show the Council exactly what humanity is capable of. Above them, 10,000 feet of ocean kept their secret safe. But soon, very soon, the Prometheus would rise from the depths. And when it did, the galaxy would learn that humanity would not be contained, controlled, or limited by anyone's rules but their own. The future was approaching fast, and it would arrive in a ship that should not exist, created by a species that refused to know its place. The orbital station's viewing window offered a perfect view of Earth below, but High Counselor Tadianji barely noticed the blue planet's beauty anymore. After 18 months of careful manipulation, she had grown tired of this backwater world and its surprisingly stubborn inhabitants. Her silver-toned skin reflected the pale light as she paced the polished floors of her private chambers. Another anomalous energy reading. High Counselor Lee Sung-min reported, his fingers dancing over the holographic display. This one from the middle of their Pacific Ocean. Show me, Yunji demanded, stopping her pacing. The human-chosen name still felt strange on her tongue, but it had served its purpose in making Earth's leaders more comfortable, more trusting. The hologram expanded, showing a deep ocean area that should have been empty except for basic mining operations. The energy spike was brief but unmistakable, something that shouldn't exist according to the technological limitations they had placed on humanity. Analysis, she asked, though she already suspected the answer. Inconclusive, Sung-min replied. The signal disappeared too quickly for our sensors to get a proper reading. But he hesitated, choosing his words carefully. The pattern resembles a quantum core signature, a powerful one. Yunji's large eyes narrowed. Impossible. The designs we provided them are explicitly limited. They cannot achieve that level of power output. Unless they found a way around our restrictions, Sung-min suggested quietly. The High Counselor's hand slammed down on her desk, making her aide jump. They are primitives, barely a century into their space age. The arrogance of suggesting they could override our safeguards. But even as she spoke, doubt crept into her mind. Humans had proven unpredictable. Their scientists asked too many questions. Their engineers showed an irritating tendency to experiment with designs that should have been accepted as final. The integration phase should have been complete by now, Sung-min noted, checking the timeline they had so carefully constructed. The fleet awaits your order to proceed with the final phase. Yunji moved back to the window, studying Earth with new intensity. The Council had done this dozens of times before, finding promising species, offering them restricted technology, then moving in to establish permanent control once they had become dependent on Council gifts. It was a dance performed over centuries, perfected to an art. But something had gone wrong this time. Show me the fleet positions, she commanded. The hologram shifted, displaying the positions of the 100 Council warships waiting in the outer solar system. They were hidden from Earth's primitive sensors, ready to emerge and establish the Council's true authority over humanity's homeworld. Perhaps we should delay, Sung-min suggested. Investigate these anomalies further before. No. Yunji's voice cut through his concerns. We proceed as planned. Whatever these energy readings indicate, they cannot possibly represent a serious threat. Humanity will learn its place, just as all others have. She straightened her ceremonial robes, preparing for the transmission that would begin the final phase. The Council had spent too much time and resources on this operation to hesitate now. Send the ultimatum, she ordered. It's time Earth understood its proper place in the galactic community. Some men nodded and began the transmission sequence. On screens around the chamber, the message began broadcasting to every major Earth government simultaneously. People of Earth, the Galactic Council has overseen your development and integration into the greater community. Now we must ensure stability through direct oversight. Our peacekeeping fleet approaches. Resistance would be both futile and unnecessary. Accept our guidance, and Earth will prosper under Council protection. Yunji smiled as the message went out. Soon, the fleet would emerge from FTL, overwhelming Earth's primitive defenses with a show of force that would ensure generations of compliance. But even as she prepared to celebrate another successful acquisition, a small doubt nagged at her mind. Those energy readings, the strange quiet from Earth's leaders, the feeling that something wasn't proceeding according to the carefully written script. High Counselor, some men's voice carried an edge of concern. The fleet is preparing to emerge from FTL, but we're detecting something in Earth's orbit, something our sensors can't quite. Yunji turned back to the holographic display, her confidence beginning to crack as she watched humanity's response to the Council's perfect plan start to unfold in very unexpected ways. Unknown to her, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, humanity had prepared a response that would shatter the Council's carefully maintained illusion of superiority forever. The void of space rippled like disturbed water as the Council's fleet emerged from FTL. 100 crystalline warships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with barely contained power. They appeared exactly where their commanders had planned, ready to overwhelm Earth's defenses with overwhelming force. They were not alone. Reality twisted again, but this time it wasn't from their arrival. A patch of space directly behind the Council flagship simply ceased to exist, replaced by a dark shape that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The HMS Prometheus unveiled itself with deliberate slowness, its presence a statement that needed no translation. Captain Song Ji-hun sat in his command chair, allowing himself a small smile as he watched the Council fleet's formation scatter in confusion. The Prometheus's sudden appearance had thrown their carefully choreographed arrival into chaos. All weapons systems online. Tactical Officer Park Min-ji reported from her station. Her fingers moved across her console with practiced precision, targeting solutions appearing faster than the Council ships could react. We have firing solutions on their primary vessels. Communications, Ji-hun asked, his voice steady despite the historic moment. All frequencies ready. Sir, Communications Officer Cho Yu-jin confirmed. We're broadcasting in both Council Standard and Earth languages. Ji-hun nodded, straightening in his chair. When he spoke, his words carried across space to every ship in both fleets. This is Captain Song Ji-hun of the Earth Defense Force. Your attempts at manipulation and subjugation end today. On the main viewer, he could see the Council flagship attempting to bring its weapons to bear, but the Prometheus had not been idle during its dramatic reveal. Multiple target locks confirmed, Min-ji announced with quiet satisfaction. Their shields are active, but our modified quantum torpedoes should pass right through them. Ji-hun watched as the Council ships tried to regroup. Their formations were textbook perfect, exactly what one would expect from a civilization that hadn't faced real opposition in centuries. They're charging weapons, Commander Han Yunji reported from engineering. But their energy signatures are exactly what we expected. No surprises in their systems. Of course not, Ji-hun thought. The Council had grown complacent, certain of their technological superiority. They had no reason to improve, to innovate. Not like humans, who had taken their carefully limited gifts and transformed them into something new. Incoming transmission from the Council flagship, Yujin announced, High Counselor Taiyunji is demanding our immediate surrender. Put her on screen, Jai-hun ordered. Let's show them exactly who they're dealing with. The alien leader's face appeared, her silver skin flushed with anger. This is impossible, she declared. The technology level we permitted. Permitted? Jai-hun interrupted, allowing his contempt to show. That was your first mistake. Humanity doesn't ask permission to advance. You cannot hope to stand against the Council fleet, Yunji warned. Our technology is exactly what we expected. Jai-hun finished for her. Every system, every capability, unchanged for centuries. While he nodded to Minji. The tactical officer's fingers danced across her console. Around the Prometheus, space itself seemed to ripple as dozens of quantum torpedoes materialized simultaneously, each one locked onto a different Council vessel. That's impossible, Yunji whispered, her large eyes widening as she read the energy signatures. Those weapons, they're beyond anything we provided. They're beyond anything you possess, Jai-hun corrected. Your second mistake was thinking we would simply accept your limitations. Humanity has never accepted chains, not even golden ones disguised as gifts. On his command chair display, Jai-hun could see more Council ships arriving, drawn by the confrontation. But he wasn't worried. The Prometheus had been built for this moment, designed to show the galaxy that humanity would not be controlled. This is your only warning, he announced to the gathered fleet. Return to Council space. Acknowledge Earth's independence, or discover exactly how far we surpassed your expectations. The silence that followed was broken only by the quiet hum of the Prometheus's systems that represented humanity's response to attempted subjugation. They had taken the Council's restricted technology and transformed it into something entirely new, something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The next move belonged to the Council, and as Jai-hun watched their ships hover uncertainly before Earth's first true warship, he knew they were finally beginning to understand just how badly they had underestimated humanity. The Grand Council chamber, with its soaring crystal arches and floating platforms, had never seemed so small. Ambassador Choi Jae-sung stood at the center of the speaking floor, the eyes of 100 alien species fixed upon him. Above, the massive holographic display showed the HMS Prometheus facing down the Council fleet, a sight that had shattered centuries of carefully maintained illusions. Lies, shouted the Verdaxian representative, his scaled skin flushing deep purple with rage. The humans must have had outside help to achieve this level of technology. From whom? Jae-sung asked calmly, his diplomatic training evident in every measured word. You've spent centuries ensuring no advanced species would dare defy the Council. Who would risk helping Earth? Security Chief Kim Do-yeon watched from her position beside the ambassador, noting how different Council members reacted to the confrontation. Some showed anger, others fear, but most interesting were those who seemed relieved, as if they had been waiting for someone to finally challenge the old order. The footage is genuine, announced the Tellurian scientific advisor, her crystalline form shimmering as she projected her analysis. The Prometheus demonstrates technological innovations we have not seen in over 300 cycles. Their quantum core configuration alone. This is irrelevant. High Counselor Taiyunji's voice cut through the chamber. Earth was given restricted technology for a reason. They have violated your control. Jae-sung interrupted. His calm facade cracked slightly, letting his anger show. The restrictions weren't about safety or proper development. They were about keeping humanity dependent, keeping us weak. The chamber erupted in shouts and arguments. Some representatives demanded immediate military action against Earth. Others called for investigation into how humans had achieved such advances. A few simply watched in silence, calculating new possibilities. We came seeking friendship, Jae-sung continued once the noise died down. Instead, We found attempted conquest disguised as benevolence. Today, that changes. Do Yun noticed movement among the younger council race's representatives. The Arcanian delegate was already approaching her discreetly, while the Nexus Collective's ambassador made subtle gestures indicating desire for private communication. The council has maintained peace for 1,000 years, Tai Yunji declared, through careful management of technological advancement. Through suppression and control, Jae Sung corrected. How many other species have you gifted with crippled technology? How many civilizations have you kept dependent on council approval? The silence that followed was deafening. Du Yun watched as representatives exchanged glances, centuries of acceptance beginning to crack. Earth proposes a new arrangement, Jae Sung announced. Full technological exchange between willing partners. No more artificial restrictions. No more controlled development. Real cooperation between equals. You would destroy the stability we have built, Tai Yunji warned. Chaos would. Progress would return, Jae Sung countered. Innovation. Growth. The very things your council has suppressed in the name of control. The Arcanian delegate stepped forward. The Arcanian sphere would be interested in such an arrangement. As with the Nexus Collective, came another voice. One by one, representatives began breaking ranks. Centuries of council control were unraveling before Du Yun's eyes. She watched as Ta Yunji's face shifted from anger to disbelief to fear. You cannot simply, the High Counselor began. We already have, Jae Sung stated firmly. The Prometheus proved that humanity will not be controlled. Now we offer a choice. Continue trying to maintain your failing grip on power, or join us in building something new, something better. Do Yun's communicator buzzed with incoming messages from dozens of species representatives, all requesting private meetings. The carefully maintained order of the Council was dissolving, replaced by the chaos of possibility. And in orbit above Earth, the Prometheus remained on station, a symbol of humanity's refusal to accept limitations and a promise of change that would reshape the galaxy. Ships of every shape, size, and design filled the space around the Lunar Defense Station. Admiral Park Jin-woo watched them through the same observation window where, 1 year ago, he had first seen the Council's crystalline vessels approach. The view was very different now. Instead of uniform Council ships, he saw the diverse fleet of the newly formed alliance, each vessel representing a civilization that had broken free from centuries of control. The HMS Prometheus held position at the center of the gathering, its dark hull a stark contrast to the colorful array of ships surrounding it. The vessel had become more than just Earth's first true warship. It was a symbol of defiance, of innovation, and of freedom that had inspired a revolution across the galaxy. Incoming transmission from the Arcanian flagship, Lieutenant Kim Hyri announced from her station. Her new uniform bore the insignia of the Joint Earth Galactic Defense Force, a merger of Earth's military with those of other former Council worlds. They're ready to begin the signing ceremony, she added, smiling. All 23 member worlds have confirmed attendance. Jin-woo nodded, remembering how quickly things had changed after the Prometheus revealed humanity's true capabilities. The Council's careful control had crumbled as species after species realized they no longer had to accept artificial limitations on their development. Status of the quantum defense grid, he asked, though he already knew the answer. Old habits died hard. Fully operational, Hyri reported. The Talarians' improvements to our original design have increased efficiency by 30%. The Nexus Collective's AI integration is working perfectly. That was another change. Real cooperation between species, sharing innovations, and building on each other's discoveries. In just 1 year, technological advancement had accelerated beyond anything the Council had permitted in centuries. Admiral, Hyri's voice carried a note of amusement. The Verdaxian ambassador is asking again about the Prometheus's stealth system design. Jin-woo chuckled. Tell him the same thing as always. Full technological exchange begins after the charter signing. The new galactic charter was more than just a treaty. It was a complete rejection of the Council's philosophy of controlled development. Every member world would have full access to all technological innovations, with only weapons of mass destruction restricted by mutual agreement. "Sir," Hyrie said softly, "look at the Prometheus." Jin Woo turned back to the window. The Earth ship was powering up its quantum core, the energy signature causing subtle ripples in space around it. But instead of the fear such a display would have caused a year ago, the gathered ships moved closer in appreciation. "Hard to believe it was just last year. We were preparing for what we thought would be our last stand," Hyrie commented. "We weren't preparing to stand," Jin Woo corrected. "We were preparing to leap forward. The Council never understood that about humans. We don't accept limitations. We break them, transform them, turn them into stepping stones." The observation deck's doors slid open as Captain Song Jae-hun entered, now wearing the rank of fleet commander. "They're ready for us in the ceremonial chamber," he announced. "The charter awaits its signatures." As they walked to the ceremony, Jin Woo reflected on how much had changed. The Council's perfect order had been replaced by something messier but far more vibrant. A coalition of species working together, innovating, competing, and cooperating as equals. "Quite a difference from last year," Hyrie said, echoing his thoughts. Jin Woo smiled. "This is just the beginning," he replied. "Humanity didn't just earn its place among the stars. We helped create a new way forward. For everyone." The ceremonial chamber was packed with representatives from every member world. As Jin Woo took his place, he saw the future in their faces, the excitement of species finally free to reach their full potential. The Prometheus had done more than save Earth from subjugation. It had sparked a revolution that would reshape the galaxy. And as the signing ceremony began, Admiral Park Jin-woo knew that humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning. The stars were no longer distant lights controlled by others. They were beacons of possibility, waiting to be explored by civilizations finally free to reach for them together. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy, not technology or weapons, but the simple, powerful idea that no species should accept artificial limits on their potential. The age of control was over. The age of innovation had begun.